in the moment. It's the mom life.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Living in the Moment with B.
And Steph, happy Monday, friend.
Woo!
Start of another week. Thank you guys for joining us. How are you guys doing with the time change over there?
It hasn't been too bad. And so
We're one full week in.
yeah, and I think you and I are actually opposite. So I am not a fan of the time change. I feel like at 5 o'clock it already feels like 8. And by the time you log off of work, you're done, you're exhausted, you're ready to put your jammies and just watch TV or go to bed. And I'm someone who likes to be busy and do projects and do things. And so I am not a fan. But I saw you post something about they can't make me hate time change or something. So I was like,
Time
what?
change, they can never make me hate you. Though I will say it does hit slightly different now that I'm a mom. Last year I was just too new into it that it didn't make a difference. I do love the time change. I love when it gets dark earlier, and it reminds me of being a kid and being so excited for Christmas, and it just reminds me of being at my grandparents, and I love it. I love it so much. But
So it makes you feel like the holidays, right? So
yeah,
I
it,
guess
it
that's
definitely puts me in the holiday spirit. But this time around, and this is what we're talking about today, is sleep and sleep regression. This time around, I think we are going through a bit of a sleep regression with Maddie. And so she just turned one. We talked about this. She turned one in September. And I feel like we skipped all of the sleep regression stages until now. And so I pretty much feel like I didn't sleep the entire month of October. And then now that the time has changed, I don't think it necessarily affected her because she's already on a little bit of a messed up schedule from, her regression, but it has affected me and I am very tired. And so the daylight thing is messing with me a little bit right now. Just like you said, like getting dark and I mean pitch black, and then I get tired and it's only 6 o'clock and we're
well,
nowhere near bedtime.
yeah,
And so yeah.
yeah, that's two things going against you. And I have a toddler, but we're not in a sleep regression right now. So I do feel for you. I remember like asking Steph. Steph never seemed to be going through it. So finally the baby hits one and it's all coming down on her. So I
Never,
do
yeah.
feel so a quick fun fact about the only thing I will say that I was reading on like because I'm like, why do we still do this? What's the point of it? So it's actually done for farmers so that they have more light during the day. Um,
That makes sense.
but then I was also just reading on your health benefits. Fall back because you actually gain an hour is actually beneficial for a lot of people. And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
during the fall, like I know, and winter, like there is a lot of high pressure, but believe it or not, there is a 21% decrease in heart attacks.
Like, I think people are just chronically sleep deprived in general, whether you have little ones or not. And I'm sure the daylight affects that. We have our circadian, what is it? Circadian clocks, circadian rhythms that we have going. And so in the summer, I'm sure people sleep maybe less, right? Because there's more daylight.
Yeah, that's what they say, right? Heart attacks and like cancer increases in the spring because you lose an hour, but it's because it also affects your natural killer cells, which fights against your cancer cells, and your natural killer cells only increase with the more sleep that you have.
Mm,
So sleep, sleep, sleep. So actually fallback is
so important.
more on the healthy side of the society, like how we
Yeah.
function as a whole. So I'm like, oh, I seem to freaking hate it, but good for everyone else that it's
Yeah.
working for.
You didn't feel like all pumped because you got an extra hour of sleep when it first started?
No, I sat up and I was bored because I'm getting up at like to work at 5 so I can get off earlier. And I was like, well, what do I freaking do at 4?
Yeah, yeah,
And
because you can't log in that early.
right, we can't log in like too early because then there's no customers. Um, like, girl, what are you doing? Put your jammies back on.
So true.
But I mean, I gave JJ like a day, and the next day I'm like, okay, I got this. I got this. But you know what? Who also got it? JJ. So we're both up the
Yeah,
next day at 5 o'clock. No big
everyone
deal.
adapts pretty easily. So I
Yeah.
feel like you get that extra hour maybe for the first week or so, and then you've adjusted. So
Yeah, it's more of a headache. I feel
yeah.
I just hate
So
it. I hate it.
going back to the sleep regression, I had actually, I've talked about this before. I was in a bunch of mom groups, right, throughout being pregnant, and when the babies were here, a lot of them were talking about, oh, we're in leap 1, leap 2, leap 3. Did you ever look up that stuff when JJ was a newborn?
I did, and JJ followed a lot of it because they're like, your baby's going to go into the seasons of just crying and feeling whiny, and you're not going to know why. Oh my God, I sound so stuffy. Sorry, guys. I think allergies are hitting me. So I'm just going to throw it out there because I can hear myself. I'm like, ew. Anyways, that's fall in full effect over here. But yeah, so I used to follow the leaps, and he would follow them. Like, I'm like, okay, he's gonna get cranky next week, and sure enough, it kind of started going, but I guess by maybe like 6 months, he kind of did his own thing.
Yeah.
Are you following that now for Maddie?
Not at all. I haven't followed any of them. I never like cared to really look up what those people were talking about. But what made me interested in it now is when I told my mom that Maddie was going through a sleep regression. She's like, "What is that? I've never heard of that." I was like, "Well, I don't. I just looked up that there's a 12-month sleep regression, and it's because of X Y Z." But okay, so she said that, right? And then I was talking to my friend Evan's mom this weekend, and she's like, I had never heard of sleep regressions. He also has a little boy that just turned 1. And so she's like, I never heard of that until you guys brought it up. And so when I was looking it up today, in the leap thing, it says that the babies are learning a new skill. Either they're learning a new skill or they're getting teeth. They're teething the whole first 2 years. But the skill part is what stuck out to me, because when I had told my mom previously, every time we had like gone through a stage of Maddie being fussy, or her naps were a little off, or whatever the case is, my mom would be like, she's learning a new skill. And so anyway, I literally just saw this when I was looking this up before we got on, that is what a leap is, and the leaps are tied to sleep regression. So basically it's just all newer lingo for things that our parents already knew. Like, they just labeled it as like, oh, they're learning a new skill. But now there's all this other like jargon and stuff tied to this whole first year.
So what have you done to kind of calm Maddie and keep her?
Nothing. That's been my approach this entire time, right? I'm not gonna. When she was first born, we weren't super strict on schedules. Then as she finally like made her own schedule, I adapted to it. I kind of learned her cues, and we figured that out. And then now through this whole sleep regression phase, actually, no, that's a lie. Okay, so when I realized that it could be her teeth hurting, because it's like adults, when we have pain, when we're sick, whatever the case is, it's worse at night, right? Like, nothing has been affecting her during the day during this whole time. She's been well, she's been her normal self, but at night is when it kicks in. So I decided that I thought it was potentially her teeth. So I did do Tylenol at night for probably about 5 days in the thick of it, still in October, I think. And that seemed to help. And then I also discovered, I think, that milk, because we just switched to whole milk, that whole milk has a lot of sugar. And so giving her that as a bedtime bottle before going to sleep was also giving her like a sugar rush and making her really hyper. So we moved that way up. So we're not doing a bottle before bed anymore. And what else?
So are you just
really
not doing a bottle at all before bed, or did you switch it out to?
No, we're not. I mean, we're still doing whole milk,
Okay.
but well, in the thick of it too, I switched it back to formula because I'm like, oh, she needs something, before bed. But now, as we've gone through like a couple more weeks, no, we're doing water. And then actually, our friend Elena had told me, she can still have a snack before bed. So like yogurt and applesauce, we've been doing that. But the bottle I've moved up by like 2 hours.
So nice.
That she gets away earlier, so that, because I'm still really trying to transition off of formula, and I don't want to rely on it, and I don't want her to like be used to it still and to need it, because we're still trying to switch to like sippy cups and everything. So all of this is like, difficult. And so, yeah, last resort, I was exhausted. I think absolutely dying one week. And so, yeah, we switched back to formula. But now that it's a little better in the sense that she's not doing like overnight wakings, she's just really difficult to put down. But she's back to sleeping all night, like hallelujah. But since we've got past that, yeah, we switched.
That was going to be
moved
my
it way
next
up.
question, if she sleeps through the night, because I'm like, well, then what do? You give her milk again? Like,
Yeah.
so.
No, that was really difficult. I'm like,
Well,
how did I do this in the beginning? But I think that just goes to show like you just have some superhuman strength somewhere in the beginning where you're like, I got to get up with this baby. Like, but I was so tired, and that was just for like a month that this went on, and in the thick of it, maybe like 3 weeks throughout the month of October. But
well, and then it's like, I've always said this, right? Like, pregnancy prepares you for that. So all the times you're getting up when you're pregnant to use the restroom at night, that just prepares you for the rest of your life.
a lot of people say though, like, oh, newborn tired is not as bad as pregnancy tired. No, I was not. I felt like that was not the case. Newborn tired was its whole own beast.
Well, I will say for you,
I
though,
was much more rested.
you were more rested as pregnant. Oh,
Yeah.
I was more rested with him born. I think the first 2 weeks was hard, but past that, my baby slept through the night right away. And then I think like 6 months is when he started switching up on me. And then it's like, oh, shoot. And now, like, he's going to be 2 next, or this month, later this month. And he still wakes up sometimes during the week, and he still wants a sippy cup of milk during the night. And they actually told us to cut that off because he's not a fat kid. He's not a chubby kid, but they said he's a little on the heavier side.
When B told me that, I'm like, oh, stop.
When you look at him, he looks average. So
yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm
he
tall.
looks like a normal little toddler.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm tall. My husband's tall. Maybe it's because we're tall. They're like, no, honey, we're doing height to weight ratio. He's a little bit on the heavy side, so cut the milk at night because it's sugar. And I'm like,
I mean, it does have a ton of sugar, though.
Right. Yeah. So I'm like, why do you guys recommend we give them whole milk if it's sugar? And I remember when I was pregnant, I craved a lot of milk. And my doctor was like, stop. You can't have milk because it's sugar, or even juices. Drink water, girl. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I really did. But yeah, whole milk is recommended by everybody. But then they also turn around, the same people
really need it,
and tell you it's sugar.
Yeah. But they don't really need it. Like, what nutrients? I mean, okay, they're getting vitamin D, which they can get from dairy.
Well,
like, why? I think whole milk is really not even necessary, right?
This is just capitalism at its best, and the pyramid that they gave everyone to follow because they wanted us to buy grains and milk and a bunch of stuff we don't really need. And so we'll have that in a different conversation, and how they tricked us all to buy stuff. But yeah, so I think it comes from, like, my mom's like, he needs milk. It makes strong bones. And like, Mom.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's an old school mentality of milk. So
right. Yeah, because Maddie's, I mean, she's adapted to it, thankfully. Initially she didn't even like it, but I think we have like a balance of milk and water. Like, she's not having too much milk. And I'll talk to her pediatrician about that when we go, I think next month. But it's not like a main, it doesn't seem to be.
It shouldn't.
Like when I weigh out food versus
right.
milk,
it shouldn't be her main source of food.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It should be food now that she's 1. And with JJ, that's where we struggled a little, where I was like, as much as he wanted to eat, he still wanted milk. Like, he just kept making room for the same amount of milk, even if he was eating more.
Yeah.
So whenever I have trouble, now that he's older, I give him his milk in the middle of the night. He only wakes up like once or twice a week now, but I still cave in sometimes because, girl, I got to work in the morning.
When she told me that the doctor was like, cut out his milk, I'm like, give my little buddy his freaking Spider-Man cup of milk.
She's like, double it. Don't listen to them. But yeah.
Give him what he wants.
Or now that he's older, because Stephanie's like, what do I do? She had reached out to me, and I'm like, well, I don't know, for JJ, because he's super mobile and he's running now, the best thing to do is tire them out. If you want to beat any type of sleep regression, exhaust those kids. Like, exhaust them. They will sleep through the night. But
I don't
it's
know
different with
because Maddie
Maddie.
will be so tired, rubbing her eyes. She wants to sleep, but she's also, I think it also has to do with separation anxiety, which she's in our room for crying out loud. Like she's not, it's not like she's anywhere far away. She's always slept in her own bed though. But that it might be a little bit of separation anxiety too, because she does want to, when I say she's hard to put down, she wants to be picked up multiple times, like rub her back, and then you put her back down and she pops right back up and you just see her looking over the side of her bed. And then she'll start like kind of yelling and she wants to be picked up again. So we go through that a bunch of times before she actually goes to sleep.
Is her crib in your room or a bassinet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you have it like a bedside? Because so we have a crib in our room, but we have it like a bedside bassinet. So he still has his own space, but it's connected to our bed.
No, we were never, I mean, we've never done the co-sleeping thing. So we had our bedside bassinet when she was born, and then we moved. Well, I guess it's a form of co-sleeping. She's in the room.
Right.
And then we moved her to her crib. And then actually she like got over her crib and now she's in a pack and play in the room. She likes that better.
She likes her area. That's her room.
She likes her pack and play better. Yeah, right. Her little boxed in room.
Mm-hmm.
Though the crib was the same way. But I don't know if it's because like she likes the mattress better that's in the pack and play than in her crib. But I've pushed on the mattress in her crib. That thing is comfortable. So I don't know. Girl's crazy.
Yeah,
she likes what she likes.
I do feel bad because she happened to be going through this while you're starting a new position. I know we keep saying we're in a new position, but it takes several weeks to learn these new positions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, she's not sleeping. And yet she's required to be fully awake and engaged during working hours, but she's not sleeping. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm going to send a little prayer for you, girl, because that is hard.
It was rough. It's still rough. I mean, she's not over it yet. Like I said, sometimes she won't go to sleep until 11:30, and there I am having to get up at 6. I mean, I guess I don't have or log on at 6, and I guess I don't really have to, but then that just means working later during the day, right. And that absolutely sucks. So I will just get up and walk the 10 feet to turn on my computer at 6 a.m. And I mean, thank the Lord, like honestly, that's the best thing about working from home. With these little ones, like even when they're going through this, the different sleep stages and stuff, even if you're flat exhausted, like you can still get up and walk the 10 steps and work,
Right. Yeah. And another pointer I would say is sometimes, and I don't know how Maddie sleeps, but during the day, sometimes JJ would take like a 2 to 3 hour nap. And so I would kind of, if it became like a habit, like, okay, this is the third night and now it's becoming a habit, and now you're waking up in the middle of the night to play. Sometimes he'll wake up, pay, mom, pay. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I'll get up and we'll come to his room because he has his own room, even though he sleeps in our room. And we'll play, and I'll stay up for 2 hours, and then we'll go back to sleep. But if we're on day 3 and this is happening, I'm like, okay, now this is a habit, kid. And so I will cut his nap a little. So instead of 3 hours, I'll wake him up like at 2 hours. I don't like to do that because I feel like when they're napping, they're growing, and that's their body needs it, right? You don't nap just because you're bored, especially when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But sometimes I've done that a couple times just to get us back aligned on sleeping through the night because again, I have to work a full-time job and it's a lot. So you do what you got to cut it, maybe, sleep a little later, maybe cut their nap, maybe get them full at night. But like you said, you still get them full, but now you do it with food for her, which I think is a great incentive instead of doing milk.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to make her all like wired like the milk did. But when we talked about doing this topic, I feel like everyone has like a different experience with it. And so I wish that we could have had someone on, but it was just too short of notice. But I know that, like I talked about my friend Evan, his son just turned 1 and has been up, I think, for like a week straight. Like it was literally from the moment Maddie turned 1. And so I don't remember what if Daisy went through the same thing as soon as Lily turned 1, but I think her sleep has been kind of different throughout too. So maybe when we have a guest on next time, we can talk to them about just what their babies went through too, because I know everyone's different with it.
Yeah, and even like with the time change, the sleep regressions don't help. And then the time, I mean, look at us, This is the second time that we're filming after work, and I literally have to have a light in the back because it's so freaking dark. Like it's 5 o'clock and it's
I'm looking at
pitch.
her on the screen.
Yeah, oh yeah. And it's pitch. Like you see me light on the computer, but like it's so dark in this room. I usually like to use a natural light, and
I was gonna say, because your light looks really good. Mine looks completely artificial, which it is. It's just and you have like this major shadow back here. But yeah, the light in here is terrible, and it's pitch black outside.
that's why. So
yeah.
fall back is really adult sleep regression. Like even spring forward, like it's all just messes you up. I hope they put an end to this. I'm tired of being tortured.
No, I don't.
I know, and you love it. Oh,
I hope they don't. And even like, I love the winter one, but I like the summer one too, because by that time you're over the cold, you're ready to move on to the warmer months, to the long daylight. My husband loves the late, like getting dark at 8:30.
Me too.
That's his jam.
That's mine too.
So I like that one too.
Me too. I just want it to stay like that. Like, why do you change us? We're already used to it. We are creatures of habit. Like, it's just to throw us into chaos. And so we have two little chaotic buddies that just make their own rules. And so between the government and the little ones,
all of us,
between the dictators and the government, our lives are messy.
Too cute. Well, that's all I had on all of this. I just thought that whole leap regression skill, like I was like, oh my gosh, it was like a light bulb went off.
Well, and it's so funny because our parents, they know what we went through, but they're like the wild west, right? They just went through it and they didn't take notes or complain, and here we are trying to perfect everything and put labels on everything, and they're like, girl, you're fine.
One thing, I did call my mom before this episode to like see if my brothers or myself went through like any sort of regression now that I explained to her what it was. And she said no, but that one of my brothers did have colic, and she said that was absolutely brutal for months on end of crying.
I prayed that my baby wasn't born with colic, because I have seen those moms. Have you seen videos of those moms? Like, or those babies, they cry nonstop. Like, I don't know how they do it.
No, but I've heard, my parents have told me with one of my brothers, and thankfully they were living with my grandparents at the time. So my dad and my grandpa would just stay up and walk my brother around the house for hours at a time. And then they'd turn on the vacuum, because that was the old school white noise, and run the vacuum and just try to calm him down. But so she said they went through that, and that sounds brutal too. So it's all just hard, but they're all just short phases and they don't last forever.
That's what you have to remind. Like, that's what I would remind myself. Like, it's only for now, B. It's gonna pass, and it does. It passed so fast, and then you're onto a new phase. And now, like I said before, even last season, I like tell my husband, like, okay, I'm ready for another. So
yay,
we'll see.
Maybe 2025.
Yeah, but you go through all these phases, and it is hard, but you quickly forget how hard it is, because you love them more than these hard stages.
For sure.
But yeah, we're sending a lot of love to all the moms out there going through sleep regression, still getting through the fallback season, the daylight. Is it daylight savings? Or
sure. I don't know.
I just know it's
I don't know if they have different names, but daylight savings,
it's something. But I know we fall back and we spring forward, and so good luck to all y'all falling back.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Living in the moment, it's the mom life.